A young man awakens to a throbbing headache, disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings and a woman's voice calling out a name he doesn't recognize. He dismisses his current state as a dream, insisting his name is Ryosuke Ichigaya, even as the woman explains he fell down the stairs and hit his head. After falling back asleep, he wakes up feeling refreshed but is immediately gripped by the same confusion about his whereabouts. A horrifying wave of anxiety crashes over him as he realizes his previous encounter was not a dream at all. He struggles to piece together his last memories, recalling only that his university classes had ended and he was on his way home. His mind draws a blank after the point he left the university, with only a faint, confusing impression of something like an explosion clouding his thoughts. He glances down at his own hands in shock, noticing they seem unnaturally small. The memory of being called Leon in the dream returns to him, and the sheer senselessness of his situation causes him to cry out in frustration. He entertains the impossible notion that he might have actually become this other person, Leon. A chaotic flood of unfamiliar images and sensations overwhelms his consciousness. These intrusive memories force him to confront the terrifying question of whether he has truly taken over Leon's body and life. Drawing upon Leon's memories, he learns a shocking truth. This place is not Japan, nor is it even Earth. The woman from before enters the room, and while Leon's memories identify her as his mother, to Ryosuke's consciousness, she remains a total stranger. The woman expresses her relief that he's awake, offering him breakfast before gently patting his head and telling him to get more rest until lunchtime. Left alone in bed, he ponders if he died on Earth and now must make sense of this new life, accepting that returning home is probably impossible. Sorrow washes over him as he mourns the family and friends he will never see again, the pain sharpened by the fact he had just been accepted into his first-choice university. He clenches his fists in silent, frustrated resignation. Shaking off his despair, he resolves to focus on the immediate task of understanding his new circumstances. He clutches his head, trying to absorb the sheer weight of his new reality. He delves deeper into Leon's memories, learning about his family, his father Jean, mother Roanna, and little sister Marie, and their life running a diner in Lazria, the capital of the Kingdom of Rathrasia. The memories paint a picture of a simple life, showing Leon helping at the family diner and playing with other children in the nearby forest. A thrilling discovery then surfaces from within these memories. In this world, magic is real. He learns that magic is divided into 6 attributes and that children are tested for their affinity at the church on their 8th birthday, an event the recently turned 8 Leon is scheduled for very soon. A genuine spark of excitement ignites within him at the prospect of being tested for magic. His focus returns to the room, and he observes the primitive nature of his new home, from the straw-filled bed to the glassless windows and candlelit illumination. Feeling sufficiently rested, he decides it's time to get out of bed and explore the house. He picks up a pair of shoes, noting that they appear to be woven from grass, and wonders what he should do now. He finds the grass shoes to be uncomfortably scratchy but puts them on, figuring he will have to make do with them for the time being. Deciding to start his exploration, he carefully opens the door to his room and peers out into the hallway. He slips out of the room quietly, moving with caution so as not to draw attention. He steps tentatively into the corridor, his new grass shoes shuffling on the wooden floor. The hallway is simple and made of wood, lined with several other closed doors. He pauses, startled by a sudden clicking sound from somewhere within the walls. He continues down the wooden corridor, his anxiety growing with each step. Peeking around a corner, he glances into what seems to be a storage area or pantry. He then finds a door that leads outside to a small dirt yard containing a stone well and a large wooden barrel. Looking at the basin next to the well, he grimaces at the realization that bathing here consists of wiping oneself down with a wet cloth. Having surveyed the backyard, he decides to investigate the next room inside the house. He looks into another room and sees the woman he now knows as his mother, Roanna, talking with his father, Jean. He steps into the kitchen to reassure his new parents that he's feeling fine, interrupting Roanna as she urges Jean to hurry with preparations for the diner's opening. He forces a bright, cheerful smile to convince them he has recovered. Roanna asks where his sister Marie is, then suggests that since he is feeling better, he should go to the diner and help her with the cleaning. He enters the adjoining diner and is immediately greeted by Marie, who calls him a clumsy big brother but then asks with concern if he is all right. His mind goes blank for a moment, utterly captivated by how overwhelmingly cute his new little sister is. A sense of panic follows as he sternly tells himself to maintain his composure and not do anything strange. Marie's question about his head still hurting snaps him out of his internal conflict. He declares himself perfectly fine and ready to help, prompting Marie to assign him the task of cleaning the area outside while she finishes up in the dining room. Stepping out the front door, he breathes a sigh of relief, glad that no one seems to suspect he isn't the real Leon. His face flushes as the weight of his recent, awkward interactions settles in. He looks out onto the street and is confronted with the lively, rustic scene of a medieval-style town bustling with people and horse-drawn carts. He stands frozen in awe, the sight confirming beyond any doubt that he is far from home. The reality sinks in with overwhelming certainty. This is another world. A pang of despair hits him as he takes in the primitive environment, realizing with a heavy heart that this is where he must live from now on. He shakes his head, trying to dispel the negative thoughts. He steels himself, deciding that there is no point in dwelling on things that he cannot change. Distracted by his thoughts, he stumbles and falls to the ground just as a concerned voice asks if he is all right. He looks up and sees a man in a cloak apologizing for bumping into him. Startled and flustered, he scrambles to his feet. He instinctively bows his head and apologizes profusely in a formal manner, insisting the fault was his, as the man watches with a concerned expression. The cloaked man studies him intently. Panic seizes him as he realizes his polite speech was a force of habit from his life in Japan and might seem strange here. The man recognizes him as the boy from the diner and curiously asks where he learned to speak with such formality. His mind races for a plausible excuse, sweat beading on his forehead. He stammers out a weak explanation, claiming that a local old man must have taught him. The man regards his nervous excuse with a faintly amused smirk. Accepting the story, the man pats him on the head, expresses his relief that he's unhurt, and apologizes one last time for the collision. The man introduces himself as Frederick and asks his name. He responds simply, Leon. Frederick smiles and promises to visit the diner sometime, to which Leon gives an enthusiastic reply. As Frederick departs into the crowd, Leon watches him go, wondering if his cover story was convincing enough. A profound question suddenly occurs to him. Not only was he able to speak formally, but he can also perfectly understand this world's language. He crouches down and writes his name in the dirt, confirming with amazement that he can also read and write the local script without any trouble. His thoughts are interrupted by Marie calling his name from the doorway, and he decides to accept his mysterious linguistic abilities as a matter of convenience. Marie glares at him, accusing him of slacking off, but he quickly protests that he was just about to finish. She orders him to hurry up because the diner is about to open, pushing him back towards the entrance as he reassures her he's on it. Realizing he's fallen behind schedule, he scrambles to finish sweeping the front of the diner. With a final sigh of effort, he finishes his cleaning duties. A loud bell suddenly echoes through the town, which he recognizes from Leon's memories as the noon bell, signaling midday from the local church. Marie bursts from the doorway, announcing that the bell means it's opening time and demanding to know if he is finally done cleaning. She chides him for standing around, reminding him that his first duty is to secure the door in its open position before helping with customers. As soon as the diner is officially open, the first patrons enter, and Marie greets them, taking their orders. He joins his sister at the entrance, welcoming another customer who asks for a steak set. The diner quickly fills with a lunchtime crowd, and he calls out that a steak set is ready to be served. He and Marie work in tandem, bustling around the small diner to deliver food to the waiting customers. After a flurry of activity, the lunch rush subsides, and they thank the final customers as they leave. His parents praise everyone for their hard work and announce that it's time for the family to eat their own lunch, much to Leon's delight. His mother tells the children to wait in the living area while she and his father prepare the leftover steaks from the lunch service. The family gathers around the table, all saying a phrase of thanks before they begin to eat. He finds it curious that this world has a custom similar to saying, "Let's eat," before a meal, but he shrugs it off as another convenient aspect of his new life. He takes a bite of the steak and his eyes widen in surprise. The meat is incredibly delicious and tastes just like the steak he remembers from Japan. Next, he decides to try the bread. He finds the bread to be shockingly hard, like a rock-solid baguette, making it difficult to eat despite its decent flavor. He moves on to the rest of the meal, finding the stir-fried vegetables to be simply tasty and the soup a little too salty, likely lacking a proper broth base like dashi. He finishes his meal, concluding that while the food is not refined, it is quite good as long as one's expectations are managed. He looks at his new family laughing together and reflects that while this life is far from luxurious, He has been blessed with kind parents and an adorable sister. A feeling of genuine happiness settles over him, and he makes a firm resolution to cherish this family in his new world, acknowledging that there is much he will need to do to adapt and build his new life. He gives thanks for the meal, his plate scraped clean. His mother announces that she and his father are preparing for the diner's night service, telling him and Marie to go have fun, which causes Marie to shout in sudden realization. She exclaims that they promised to play in the forest with their friends, Nicola and Luke, and though Leon has no such memory, he quickly plays along and urges her to get ready. Leon and Marie rush to the entryway of their home. They sit together on the floor, quickly putting on their outdoor shoes. With Marie carrying a large gathering basket and Leon holding a small knife, they declare that they are off. Marie jingles a small bell as they leave their house and head into the town. They arrive at another home, where Marie asks a woman at the counter if Nicola and Luke are inside. The woman explains that her husband is out gathering supplies but should be home by the time they return from their trip to the forest. Marie happily declares her affection for the man she calls Uncle, and the woman smiles, saying he will be delighted to hear it. Just then, a boy named Luke appears from a back room, apologizing for the wait and eagerly suggesting they pick a lot of fruit today. A girl named Nicola follows him out, and Leon greets her while also apologizing for any delay. The friends all greet each other enthusiastically before preparing to leave. Leon smiles and asks the group if everyone is ready to set out. Luke gives a cheerful confirmation and declares that it's time to get going. The four children walk together through the town, passing fenced-in farms and fields on their way to the outskirts. They soon arrive at a path leading into a dense, sprawling forest. Nicola looks around with some uncertainty and asks her older brother, Luke, if they'll be able to find much fruit. Luke admits that since it isn't fully summer yet, he isn't sure, but he remains hopeful they can find some kind of fruit that's in season. He then turns to Leon and asks for his opinion, putting him on the spot in front of the others. Drawing on his knowledge from Earth, Leon suggests that raspberries might be in season and, spotting a familiar-looking plant, declares that he's found some. He leads the others to a large thicket laden with ripe raspberries, and his friends gasp in amazement at the find. The four of them let out a collective, excited cheer, eager to begin harvesting the berries. They immediately get to work, happily picking the fresh fruit from the bushes. After filling their bags, they show off their hauls to one another and Luke suggests they try eating some right away. The other three children pop the berries into their mouths and savor the taste. They all exclaim how sweet and delicious the raspberries are, prompting a curious Leon to try one for himself. An intensely bitter and sour taste explodes in his mouth, causing him to recoil in disgust. He watches his friends enjoy the fruit and realizes that since wild berries are likely the only sweet thing they ever eat, their palates are simply not used to real sweetness. While they may be content with this flavor, his own knowledge of sugary treats from his old world makes this bitterness completely unacceptable to him. A new resolve forms in his mind to find a source of real sugar in this world, a thought that is interrupted when Marie tells him it is time to gather firewood before they head home. After dropping off their friends, Leon and Marie return to their own neighborhood and stop by the house of the uncle Marie is so fond of. The woman at the counter calls for her husband, Ben, who comes rushing out with a wide smile, overjoyed to see Marie. Ben scoops Marie up into a big hug, exclaiming how happy he is that she came to visit. He then turns his boisterous attention to Leon, giving him a rough and friendly hair ruffling as a welcome. After a short visit, the siblings say their goodbyes and continue on their way home. As they walk, Marie turns to Leon with a serious expression, pointing out that he has been spacing out a lot lately and often doesn't respond when she calls him. He laughs nervously and denies her accusation, but she insists he needs to pay better attention to her from now on. He sweats under her scrutinizing gaze and promises that he will try to be more mindful. They arrive back at the diner and proudly show their parents the large bag of raspberries they gathered. Their father is impressed by the haul and says they can all enjoy them after dinner, which prompts Leon to ask his mother if she has any sweet seasonings in the kitchen. When she asks why, he explains that he thinks it would make their food much tastier, leading her to ponder if he means honey or sugar. His mother tells him that such items aren't sold in their immediate area, as they are luxury goods primarily available in downtown shops that cater to nobility. She adds that the capital is a 2-hour carriage ride away and warns him to be careful around nobles, some of whom can be unreasonable, which comes as a shock to Leon. He processes this new information and, seeing no other choice, tells his mother he will give up on the idea of sweet seasonings for now. Determined to find another way to make something delicious, he is struck by a sudden idea and asks if he can use the kitchen to make a dish with the raspberries. His mother is taken aback, noting that he has never cooked before, but he quickly claims he must have learned just from watching his parents. His father, overhearing, enthusiastically gives his permission. His father encourages Marie to help with the cleanup afterward, and she cheers at the prospect of her brother cooking. His mother brings him the bowls of ingredients that have been prepared. Both of his parents look on with eager anticipation, telling him how interested they are to see what he creates. He feels the pressure of their combined gazes and nervously asks them not to get their hopes up too much. As they get started, he confirms that they have flour and eggs available in the kitchen. When his mother asks what he intends to make with them, he simply smiles and says she will have to wait and see. She gathers all the items he requested, her curiosity piqued by his mysterious plan. Leon announces to his watching family that his first step is to mix everything together. He carefully combines the ingredients in a large wooden bowl, stirring them into a batter. He continues mixing the batter with a wooden spoon, trying to achieve the right consistency based on his memories. His mother watches with concern as the mixture becomes sticky, but he confidently assures her that this is how it is supposed to be. She still seems uncertain about his strange-looking concoction. His father, Jean, places a reassuring hand on his wife's shoulder, telling her to let Leon try, as he has clearly put his mind to it. She relents with a smile and tells Leon to carry on, so he moves to the next step, adding the raspberries. His parents watch him, their expressions a mixture of doubt and curiosity. Jean looks at the bowl of raw batter and asks if this is the finished dish, but Leon quickly holds up his hands and insists he isn't done yet. He explains that he must first mash some of the raspberries and then gently mix them into the batter. Once the berries are incorporated, he proudly declares the batter is ready and that the final step is to bake it. He moves toward the stove, but stops short when his mother opens the firebox and uses a spark of fire magic to light it. The sight of real magic, up close and casual, mesmerizes him completely, reinforcing the wonder and strangeness of his new reality. He apologizes for pausing, admitting he was just amazed by how cool magic is, and his mother reassures him with a smile that he will get his own chance to use it after his upcoming trip to the church. Remembering a crucial element, he turns back to the task at hand and asks his mother if they have any butter. She retrieves a block of what looks like butter from their pantry and presents it to him. He melts a piece of the butter in a hot pan before pouring a ladleful of the raspberry batter onto the sizzling surface. He intently watches the batter as it cooks, remembering that the key is to wait for bubbles to form before flipping it over. The batter slowly cooks in the pan as his family watches on. He leans in close to inspect the cooking pancake, judging its progress. When he decides it's time to flip it, he finds that he lacks the strength and coordination to handle the pan properly. His father steps in with a smile, takes the pan, and expertly flips the pancake high into the air, landing it perfectly. Leon thanks his dad, amazed by his skill, while his mother remarks on the wonderfully sweet aroma now filling the kitchen. Once the other side is cooked, he announces that all that remains is to serve their creation. He proudly presents the finished stack of fluffy raspberry pancakes on a wooden plate. His parents are amazed at the result and ask when he learned to cook such a dish, but he simply tells them to call Marie so they can all dig in. The entire family gathers around to take their first bites, and Leon waits anxiously for their reaction. Their faces light up with delight as they praise the chewy texture of the batter and the way it brings out the sweetness of the fruit, with Marie declaring that her cheeks are going to melt from happiness. He beams with relief and joy, thrilled that his first attempt at cooking in this world was a success. His pleasure is short-lived as his parents notice the time and realize the diner's night shift is about to begin. They explain that the evening patrons primarily come for alcohol and snacks, so the children's work is done for the day and it's time for them to have their own dinner. He now understands why he and Marie often eat dinner by themselves while their parents work. As the two siblings eat their meal, Marie gushes about how good the raspberry dish was, asking if they are really called pancakes. He confirms that he came up with the name, and Marie observes that their taste and texture are unlike anything she has ever eaten before. With a happy blush, she tells him she wants to eat them again very soon. He agrees, and they decide together that they will need to go pick tons of raspberries in the future. Later that night, as a single candle burns by the bedside, he looks over to see that Marie is already sound asleep, worn out from their day of adventure. He lets out a big yawn, feeling completely wiped out himself after such a long and eventful day. He settles into his own bed and looks out the window at the stars, reflecting on the fact that his life in another world has officially and truly begun. He proudly announces that the dough is ready and just needs to be baked. As he approaches the stove, he stops dead in his tracks when his mother opens the firebox and uses a spark of magic to ignite the kindling. He stares in utter amazement at the display of real magic, exclaiming how incredibly cool it is. His mother, confused by his pause, asks him what is wrong and why he is not baking yet. He apologizes for the delay, explaining that he was just in awe of the magic, and she smiles, reassuring him that he too will be able to use magic soon after they visit the church. Snapping back to his task, he remembers another key ingredient and asks his mother if she has any butter. She retrieves a block of butter from the pantry and asks if it will be okay for his recipe. He melts the butter in a hot pan and then pours the batter in, which sizzles upon contact. He watches the pancake cook, recalling from his past life that the correct time to flip it is when small bubbles begin to appear on the surface. The batter continues to cook slowly in the pan as his family watches with interest. He leans in to inspect the pancake, noting that it already seems pretty cooked. Deciding it is time to flip it, he struggles with the pan, unable to get the technique right. His father steps in, confidently telling Leon to leave it to him, and expertly flips the large pancake in the air. Leon praises his dad's amazing skill, and his mother remarks that although she was unsure at first, the dish now smells delicious. With the pancake fully cooked, he declares that all that's left is to serve it on a plate. He proudly presents the finished stack of glistening raspberry pancakes. His father calls his creation amazing and asks when he learned to cook like this, while his mother suggests they call Marie so everyone can eat. The whole family gathers around the table to take a bite, and Leon anxiously asks them how it tastes. They are all blown away by the delicious flavor, praising the soft dough and the way it brings out the raspberry's natural sweetness. He beams with pride and relief, overjoyed that his family loves his cooking. He is glad everyone enjoyed the treat, but his parents suddenly notice the time and realize the diner's night service is about to begin. His mother praises the children for their good work and tells them that since the night service is mostly for adults drinking, their work is done for the day and they can have dinner. He now understands why he and Marie often eat dinner alone while their parents are busy working. As the two siblings eat their meal, Marie gushes about how delicious the raspberry dish was and asks what it is called. He tells her they are called pancakes, and she marvels that while the name is new, the taste and texture are completely different from anything she's ever had. With a happy smile, she tells him she wants to eat them again very soon. He agrees, and they decide they must go picking raspberries again, with Marie enthusiastically promising to gather a lot. Later that night, he looks over at his sister's bed and sees she has already fallen fast asleep, worn out from their eventful day. He lets out a huge yawn, realizing he is also very tired after everything that happened. As he settles into bed, he looks out at the starry night sky and reflects that his new life in another world has officially begun. A distant bell tolls, signaling the start of a new day. Leon's eyes slowly open as he begins to wake up. He is momentarily disoriented, looking around the simple wooden room and wondering where he is. The memories of the previous day come rushing back, and he remembers that he was reincarnated as a boy named Leon in an alternate world. He stares at the ceiling, fully accepting the reality that his new life was not just a dream. His thoughts are interrupted by Marie talking in her sleep about food and his mother's voice calling them for breakfast. At the breakfast table, his mother asks about his plans, and Marie announces that she and Luke are going to the market stalls, inviting Leon to join them. He tells her he has other plans for the day but says maybe next time, leaving his sister looking disappointed. He decides to explore the area opposite the forest and announces that he is leaving for the day. He arrives at a bustling plaza filled with vendors and wonders if these are the stalls Marie was talking about. He surveys the crowded market and spots an area with more permanent and interesting-looking shops. As he walks through this new section of town, he notices that it is filled with various workshops for craftsmen. He passes by shops with illustrated signs depicting clothing and tailoring supplies. He then stops in front of a shop that, unlike the others, has a sign with only letters written on it. He carefully sounds out the letters one by one, trying to decipher the words. His eyes widen in shock as he reads the sign aloud, Magic Artifact Workshop. Wondering if they sell machine-like items, his curiosity gets the better of him, and he opens the door to see what is inside. He peeks into the quiet, empty shop and calls out to see if anyone is there. An old man emerges from a back room, telling him in a gruff voice that there is no need to shout. Leon nervously explains that he is interested in magical artifacts. The old shopkeeper's eyes snap wide open with a sharp, intense focus. The man leans forward and asks what he really wants, then questions him directly, asking if he was able to read the letters on the sign. A wave of panic hits Leon as he realizes his ability to read has exposed him. He tries to laugh it off by claiming someone else read the sign for him, but quickly admits there was no one else around. He asks if being able to read is rare, and the old man confirms that for a commoner, it is very rare indeed. The man's suspicion deepens as he also points out Leon's natural use of formal language, asking where a boy like him learned to speak that way. The shopkeeper stares at him with piercing eyes and asks him a direct and dangerous question. Who are you? Leon feels trapped under the man's intense, suspicious gaze, his mind racing. He quickly apologizes and deflects by saying he simply had a good teacher, then tries to change the subject by asking if the man is a noble. The old man clarifies that the term semi-noble refers to the children of nobles who are not the firstborn heir. Leon asks if this means that only the firstborn can become nobles, and the man replies that it's not quite that simple. He explains that if non-firstborns achieve a great merit, they can receive the title of noble knight, which is valid for a single generation, a system Leon finds surprisingly well-structured. The man reflects that even for those born into nobility, a life of safety is never guaranteed. He laughs, impressed that such a young child can grasp these complex societal matters, and remarks that he never expected to meet such an interesting boy at his age. He then issues a stern warning, advising Leon not to show off his intelligence so openly, as there are many ill-intentioned people in the world. The man brings the conversation back to its original topic, reminding Leon of his stated interest in magical artifacts. Leon admits that he has never actually seen one and asks the man to explain what exactly a magical artifact is. The craftsman explains that they are expensive items made from valuable materials, circulating exclusively among the nobility, which means their price is unlikely to ever decrease. A wave of disappointment washes over Leon as he realizes this potentially useful technology is completely out of his reach. He asks about the specific materials used, and the man identifies them as magic stone and magic iron. The man describes a magic stone as a transparent gem that can manifest infused magic, while magic iron is a special metal that freely changes its shape when magical energy is applied. He concludes by explaining that a magical artifact is created by shaping the magic iron and embedding a magic stone within it. The concept excites Leon, who compares it to a machine from his old world and eagerly asks where he can acquire one. The old man bluntly shuts down his excitement, telling him that he can't. Leon shouts in disbelief as the man explains that all the mines for the materials and all the manufacturing workshops are owned and operated by the state. He slumps over the table in despair, feeling completely trapped by the system. The bitter realization dawns on him that just like sugar, magical artifacts are another resource monopolized by the nobility. This new information makes him question the existence of the very shop he is in. He asks the man why a private workshop like this one is here if the state controls everything. The old man explains that his workshop is a special case, as he is a recent retiree from a state workshop. He tells Leon that he still wanted to continue making magical artifacts, so he started the shop instead of fully retiring. He clarifies that it wasn't easy. He was given special authorization to open his own workshop in exchange for the title he received for his inventive achievements. Leon realizes this workshop is unique, and the man confirms it, adding that he now spends his days freely devising new magical artifacts. Seeing a glimmer of hope, Leon understands how lucky he was to find this place and asks if the man would sell him an artifact if he could afford it. The man apologizes and once again refuses, likely to avoid wasting the precious materials on a commoner child. Leon leans forward and pleads his case, admitting he is just the son of diner owners but asking if there is any possible way for him to obtain a magical artifact. The old man considers his plea and suggests that there might be a chance if he enrolls in the Royal Academy. Leon is shocked by the suggestion and asks if even commoners are allowed to attend. The man confirms that anyone can get in as long as they pass the exam, but he warns that while tuition is free, the cost of living in the city center among nobles is extremely high. He adds that the school term lasts 5 years, from age 11 to 15, and Leon feels confident that he could manage the academic side of it. Now armed with a clear goal, he realizes the only thing standing in his way is money, which he must acquire before the entrance exam at the end of winter. Leon makes a bold and desperate offer. He wants to sell his idea for a new magic artifact. The old man's eye twitches, completely taken aback by the boy's proposition. After a moment of consideration, he agrees to hear the idea, but with one condition: all registration and usage rights for the invention will belong to him. Leon eagerly accepts the terms, understanding that it is similar to the patent system from his old world. He then realizes he must get home before the night bell rings, so the man tells him to come back another day to discuss his idea. Before he leaves, Leon asks for the man's name, who introduces himself as Marcel. 4 days later, Leon returns to the magic artifact workshop and calls out a greeting. Marcel welcomes him, saying he has come at a good time and, remembering Leon's wish to see magical artifacts, invites him inside. He leads Leon into his workshop, a room filled with materials that Leon recognizes as magic iron and magic stones. Marcel invites the awestruck boy to have a seat, explaining that it will be easier to talk in here. He begins by presenting the most famous and common magical artifact. Leon stares in shock at the object Marcel holds up. Marcel reveals the device is a light sphere, which contains a magic stone embedded with the healing attribute. He explains that when healing magic is infused into the stone, the sphere will shine continuously for 30 days, and the light can only be turned off by removing the stone. Leon immediately thinks of how a mechanical switch could improve the design and asks what other kinds of artifacts exist. Marcel lists the other common inventions: a fan, a running water system, and a flush toilet. Leon is stunned to see a magical version of a modern flush toilet. Marcel then demonstrates the running water system, which produces a clean stream of water from a tap. Seeing how these incredibly useful inventions are monopolized by the nobles only deepens his envy and frustration. Marcel then brings the conversation back to the reason for Leon's visit, the reward for his idea. He lays out his offer: 1 gold coin if the idea is good, and 5 platinum coins if it becomes an artifact officially registered at the royal palace. Leon is left completely speechless by the proposed payment. He confesses that he does not understand the value of money, so Marcel explains the currency system, which consists of 6 types of coins from iron to platinum, with 10 of 1 coin being exchangeable for one of the next highest value. Leon mentally converts the amounts to Japanese yen and is floored by the massive sums, but Marcel casually remarks that it is actually a small amount for him. He explains that since his clients are nobles, the profits he earns are incredibly large. Marcel then mentions that the reward will be deposited into Leon's bank account, which surprises the boy, who obviously doesn't have one. When Marcel says they will have to go make an account, Leon asks if a child is even allowed to do that. Marcel confirms that it is possible with enough money and offers to accompany him, since a child going to a bank alone would raise suspicion. He reassures the hesitant boy that he should not worry about it. Marcel asks when would be a good day for them to go to the city center, and Leon asks if he can consult with his parents first, which Marcel agrees to. Leon thanks Marcel for his time and promises to come back again soon. Marcel watches from his doorway as the young boy runs off. He strokes his chin and muses to himself that Leon is a very interesting child. He returns home and announces his arrival, surprising his mother with a request to go to the central district. She is immediately suspicious when he explains he wants to go with an old man who runs a workshop he just met that day. He nervously asks if it is not allowed for him to go. After a moment of hesitation, his mother agrees but gives him a stern warning. If he senses any danger, he must run away immediately to a guard station or another shop. Leon tries to reassure her by pointing out that he is already 8 years old. This gives his mother an idea, and she decides that before he goes, they will visit the church the next day for his magic aptitude test. She reasons that it will be much safer for him to explore if he can use even a little bit of magic, a prospect that fills Leon with pure joy. He enthusiastically agrees to the plan and tells his parents he will inform the old man about the change of schedule. Early the next morning, he runs to the workshop and tells Marcel that he has received permission to go to the central district tomorrow. Marcel understands the change of plans and confirms that they can meet at the workshop. Leon is delighted and tells Marcel that he looks forward to being in his care for the trip. He returns home just as the afternoon clouds begin to gather. After finishing lunch, his mother tells him to get ready for their trip to the church while she cleans the dishes. The entire family walks together through the town on their way to the ceremony. They arrive in front of a simple but well-kept wooden church, and Leon takes in the sight. He points to the buildings on either side of the main chapel and asks his mother what they are. She explains that they are the healing center and the orphanage, and that every church is required to have them. A nun greets them at the entrance, and Leon's father explains that they have come for his son's magical power measurement. The nun agrees and invites Leon to follow her, while his family stays behind, offering him words of encouragement. He is filled with a sense of wonder and anticipation as the nun leads him through a door to the testing area. She brings him to a small, quiet room and instructs him to take a seat at a wooden table. With a calm smile, she announces that it is time to begin the magical power measurement. She instructs him to place his hand on a circular stone tablet, explaining that his magic will be drawn out automatically and that he must pay close attention to the sensation. He places his hand on the cool stone and feels a sudden, powerful surge of energy flow from his body. He instantly recognizes the warm, tingling sensation as his own magic power. The nun tells him to stop, and her eyes widen in surprise as she reads the result of the test. In a shocked voice, she announces that his magical power level is 5, the highest possible value one can have. After recovering from her astonishment, she declares that it is now time to determine his magical attribute. She asks him if he knows that there are 6 different types of magic attributes. She explains that the next test involves him trying to cast the simplest spell from each attribute, and whichever one he can successfully cast will be his natural affinity. He chooses to try healing magic first, so she tells him they will start with the light spell. She explains the core principle of magic. The most important thing is forming a clear image in one's mind and infusing it with magical power to activate the spell. He closes his eyes, focuses on the image of light, chants the word, and successfully creates a glowing orb at the tip of his finger. He stares in amazement, thrilled that he was able to successfully cast a real magic spell. The reality of his new power washes over him, and he marvels at how cool magic truly is. The nun congratulates him on his success, confirming that his attribute is healing and reminding him that practice is the key to mastery. She teaches him the basics of his new attribute, including the spells Heal, for wounds, and Purification, for cleaning, and warns him that exhausting his magical power will cause him to lose consciousness. She adds that with his exceptional power level of 5, he might even be capable of healing fractured bones. He asks if healing magic can also cure illnesses, but she clarifies that it is only effective on physical injuries. He thanks her for the information, privately wondering if it might be possible to heal sickness with a powerful enough image and enough magical energy. He runs back to his family and excitedly announces that his magical power level is 5 and his attribute is healing. They are all amazed by the news, and Marie is delighted that her brother will be able to heal her if she gets hurt, though their mother warns her to still be careful. His father proudly declares that this momentous occasion calls for a celebration as they head home. Back in his room, Leon immediately begins practicing his newly acquired light spell. He experiments with the spell, wondering if he can alter the size and intensity of the light he creates. He quickly discovers that he can indeed change the light's size and color simply by changing the image in his mind. Focusing on the principle that the image is the key, he successfully casts the spell again without needing to chant the word aloud. He is amazed that it worked so easily, even though he doesn't fully understand the mechanics behind it. He decides that the next spell he wants to master is the most important one, Heal. He realizes he has no injuries to test the spell on, and the thought of deliberately hurting himself, even for practice, fills him with dread. After steeling his resolve, he takes his knife and makes a small, shallow cut on his finger. Wincing from the sting, he worries for a moment that the spell might fail, but he quickly casts Heal. He closes his eyes and concentrates, forming a detailed image of the wound closing, the skin knitting back together, and the pain fading away. A warm, gentle light envelopes his injured hand as the spell activates. He opens his eyes in astonishment to see that the cut has vanished completely, leaving his skin perfectly smooth. He realizes that by imagining the healing process in such detail, he made the spell more efficient, and wonders if this means he could heal larger wounds or even illnesses. With no way to test healing on a larger scale, he decides to practice the Purification spell on a dirty piece of wood. He points his finger and casts the spell on the soiled object. The dirt vanishes in a sparkle of light, leaving the wood looking brand new and perfectly clean. This gives him an idea, and he wonders if the spell would work on his own body. He casts Purification on himself and is amazed to feel completely clean and refreshed, realizing he may have just solved his bathing problem. With a determined grin, he decides to take his practice to the next level and clean his entire room at once. He unleashes a wide-area Purification spell, but the massive output of energy immediately makes him feel faint. He collapses onto the spotless floor, realizing too late that he has used far too much of his magical power. Lying there exhausted, he understands that he must learn to be aware of his own magic capacity, as recovering from magical exhaustion will take time. As he recovers, he remembers that he never tried to cast spells from the other attributes during his test and decides to give it a shot. He points his finger and attempts a basic fire spell, Spark, and is shocked when a small spark appears. He is utterly confused by this, as everything he has been told indicates that a person can only use one magical attribute. Wondering if he can use the others as well, he goes outside to conduct a more thorough experiment. He stands before a bucket of water and successfully casts a water magic spell. In rapid succession, he then manages to cast spells from the wind, earth, and physical enhancement attributes. He stands in silence for a moment, processing the results of his test. The incredible truth dawns on him. He can use all of the magic attributes, a phenomenon he suspects might be related to his reincarnation. A wave of fear washes over him as he considers the dangerous implications of his unique ability, terrified that he could be turned into a test subject if anyone found out. He concludes that he must keep this an absolute secret, but the thought of carrying such a heavy burden alone is painful. He then thinks of the one person he might be able to trust, Mr. Marcel. He feels a sense of conviction that Marcel is someone he can confide in about his secret. With his mind made up, he decides to try one more experiment, creating ice with water magic. Recalling the scientific principle from his past life, he focuses on the image of water molecules stopping their movement, but regrets not having studied more. When nothing happens, he realizes the water needs a physical stimulus to trigger the crystallization. He gives the bucket a slight shake, and the supercooled water inside instantly freezes into a solid block of ice. His success sparks an idea for creating a magical refrigerator, but his thoughts are interrupted by his sister calling him for dinner. The next morning, he is dressed and ready for his trip to the Central District with Marcel. He is excited for the day, clutching the allowance his parents gave him for the journey. He arrives at Marcel's workshop, thinking he might be a little early due to his excitement. He knocks on the door and gives Marcel a cheerful good morning greeting. Marcel notes his early arrival, and Leon admits he was too excited to sit still, so Marcel tells him to wait a moment while he gets ready. Marcel emerges, now wearing a hat and coat for their trip, and announces that they are ready to head out. As they walk to the carriage stop, Leon silently observes the stark contrast in clothing between the people in his neighborhood and those from other parts of the city, a clear sign of the gap between the rich and the poor. He suddenly worries about the cost of the carriage fare, but Marcel tells him not to worry, as he plans to cover all expenses except for the bank account setup fee. Marcel explains that since he has no children or grandchildren of his own, he finds joy in seeing Leon happy, and asks him to accept his generosity as the selfish wish of an old man. Touched by his kindness, Leon thanks him profusely, his trust in the old craftsman solidifying even further. A covered wagon stands ready at the carriage stop. Marcel leads Leon through the streets, telling him the carriage to the Central District is this way. Leon expresses his excitement for his first carriage ride as Marcel pays the 2 copper coin fare for them both. They board the carriage and exchange greetings with the other passengers already seated inside. He is filled with giddy anticipation, realizing his trip to the Central District is finally happening. The horse-drawn carriage begins its journey, rumbling and shaking along the road. After a long ride, the driver announces their arrival in the Central District. Leon looks pale and unwell, sweating from the ordeal. He complains that he underestimated the carriage, as the rough road and hard wooden seat made his rear end hurt immensely. He stumbles off the carriage, trying to recover from the painful journey. His discomfort is forgotten as he looks up and is struck with awe at the sight of the impressive, well-constructed buildings of the Central District. He asks Marcel where the nobles' mansions are, and Marcel explains they are located further up, with a noble's rank determining how close their mansion is to the royal castle. Leon realizes that even among the nobles, there is a strict hierarchy, and their lives might not be as easy as he imagined. He confirms with Marcel that their first destination is the bank. He asks if there are shared carriages within this district, but Marcel explains that nobles only use their own private carriages. He then asks if commoners use the bank, and Marcel clarifies that the wealthy commoners who would have a reason to do so also own their own carriages, just as they arrive at their destination. They stand before a massive, imposing building with grand stone columns. Leon stares in amazement, realizing this incredible structure is the bank. They walk up the steps and through the large, heavy doors into the building. The entrance hall is flanked by 2 imposing guards in uniform. They enter the main lobby, a vast room with high ceilings and several tellers working behind ornate counters. Marcel approaches a teller and explains that they are here to open an account for the child. The teller looks down at Leon with skepticism, pointing out that accounts are deactivated after 3 years of inactivity. He states bluntly that the boy does not look like someone who needs a bank account. Despite his skepticism, the teller provides the necessary form and asks if they need assistance filling it out, which Marcel declines. Leon confidently takes the form, ready to complete it himself. He carefully fills in his name, gender, age, and his new address in the capital city of Lazaria. After finishing, he hands the completed form back to the teller, who reviews it and confirms that everything looks good. The teller then presents a crystal ball and instructs Leon to channel a bit of his magic into it so they can record his unique magic signature for identification. Leon places his hands on the orb, and after a moment, the teller confirms that his magic has been successfully registered and asks them to wait. While they wait, Leon asks Marcel about the crystal ball and if it was invented by someone. Marcel explains that it is a crystal used for identity verification that was discovered in a forest church about 100 years ago. He continues, saying that after extensive research, it was discovered that all the crystals are linked and can identify individuals through their magic, which led to their use in banks. He concludes by stating that the crystals are believed to be divine relics. Marcel elaborates that divine relics are items of unknown origin that are indestructible, and some of them have purposes that are still not understood. The information shocks Leon, as it implies the real existence of a god in this world. The teller returns with Leon's new bank card, and Leon worries about the cost of the process, but Marcel reminds him that he is covering all the expenses as part of their agreement. Marcel simply chuckles at Leon's profuse gratitude. He then declares that it is time for some sightseeing, but first, they must buy a case for Leon's new card so he doesn't lose it. The two of them walk through the bustling, elegant streets of the Central District. Marcel suggests they get lunch first, listing off the various options, from fancy restaurants to stylish cafes and commoner-friendly diners. Leon suggests a diner, but Marcel insists they go to a stylish cafe, saying he personally wants to go. He explains that restaurants have a strict dress code, but Leon's current attire is fine for a cafe, an idea that Leon eagerly shouts his approval for. They arrive at a charming cafe with large windows and a hanging sign. A waitress in a neat uniform welcomes them and directs them to a table. She hands them menus and tells them to call her when they are ready to order, leaving Leon flustered as Marcel asks him what he wants. He looks over the menu, recognizing some items like sandwiches and French toast, but finding others completely unfamiliar. He decides on a sandwich and French toast and is surprised to see a separate menu just for drinks. He is completely stunned to see green tea listed as an option. The presence of such a familiar item gives him a strange Japanese vibe, and he puzzles over how it could exist in this world. Deciding it is a mystery he cannot solve, he chooses to order black tea instead and puts the thought out of his mind. As they wait for their food, he gets Marcel's attention to ask a question. He asks if noble cuisine is more advanced than what commoners eat, and Marcel confirms that it has developed rapidly since the end of a war over 10 years ago. Marcel adds that since they can now import sugar, sweet dishes have become much more common among the nobility. Leon clenches his fist in frustration, annoyed that once again, the nobles get all the good things, but Marcel assures him that commoner food will eventually improve, though it will take time. This conversation reinforces his determination to get into the Royal Academy and change his station in life. Their food arrives, a beautiful spread of sandwiches, French toast, jam toast, and 2 cups of black tea. They both give thanks for the meal and prepare to dig in. Leon is impressed by the sight of silverware, another novelty of the Central District, and notes that it is used in the same way as in his previous world. He takes a bite of his sandwich and is shocked to discover that the bread is soft and not hard at all. He savors the taste, finding the chicken, the sauce, and everything else to be incredibly delicious. He then turns his attention to the French toast, a dish he has been eagerly anticipating. He takes a bite and is overwhelmed with joy at the taste of real sugar sweetness, declaring it unbelievably delicious. He sips his tea and reflects on how happy a truly good meal can make a person feel. He thanks Marcel profusely for the amazing food, and Marcel says he is glad to see him so happy. After their meal, the bank teller returns and presents Leon with his new bank card. The teller explains that by showing the card and providing a magic signature, he can deposit, withdraw, and transfer money. He also warns Leon to be careful, as reissuing a lost card will cost a fee of 3 silver coins. He then informs them that the fee for creating the account is 1 silver coin, an amount that shocks Leon. Marcel tells him their next stop is a leather goods shop to buy a card holder so he doesn't lose his expensive new card. They continue their shopping trip through the Central District. They enter a fine leather goods store, where Marcel tells the shopkeeper they are looking for a bank card holder that can be worn around the neck and also hold a bit of money. The shopkeeper shows them a selection of suitable leather wallets and pouches. The shopkeeper states that the price for the one Leon chooses is 5 silver coins, an amount that makes Leon's jaw drop. Marcel pays for the expensive item and tells Leon to put his card in it for safekeeping. Leon promises to work hard to come up with a good idea, but Marcel tells him not to rush, as he plans to have Leon earn money for him for a long time to come. As they start to head back, Leon agrees that it will take some time. He is suddenly startled by a person walking past. The person bumps into him, knocking him off his feet. He falls to the ground in pain as a familiar voice asks if he is okay. He looks up to see the man who bumped into him is Frederick, the guardsman he had met before. Frederick recognizes him as Leon from the diner and apologizes for bumping into him yet again. A young woman's voice calls out Frederick's name from behind him. Frederick turns to the elegantly dressed girl, who asks if he knows the child. Leon is stunned silent for a moment. He is completely captivated by the girl, thinking she is the cutest person he has ever seen. The girl introduces herself as Martine and apologizes for bumping into him, looking like a little doll in her fancy dress. Leon stammers that it was his fault for stumbling and introduces himself. He then has a moment of panic as he remembers that Frederick used the Sama honorific when speaking to her, realizing she must be a noble. Martine recognizes Marcel's name, and Marcel quickly gives a respectful greeting, introducing himself as Marcel Conrally. After Frederick whispers something to her, Martine smiles and tells Marcel to simply call her Martine. She then turns her warm smile to Leon, making him blush. She asks Leon if he is a commoner and what brings him to the Central District today. He confirms it is his first time visiting, and they find common ground in their shared enjoyment of walking around the lively town. When she asks what he ate, he happily describes the delicious French toast he had for lunch. The mention of his favorite sweet treat makes Martine's eyes light up with excitement. She suddenly grabs his hands and makes a fervent request. She wants him to be her friend. A beatific smile spreads across the young noblewoman's face. Her request leaves Leon, Marcel, and Frederick frozen in a state of anxious shock. Leon wonders how he found himself in such an impossibly awkward situation. The scene rewinds to a few moments earlier. Martine looks at Leon with wide, earnest eyes and asks him to please be her friend. Leon can only stare back, completely bewildered by the sudden plea. Frederick quickly steps in, telling Lady Martine to wait, gently scolding her for asking a complete stranger to be her friend so abruptly. She pushes back, explaining that she was overjoyed because Leon, unlike other commoner children, looked her directly in the eye and spoke to her normally. She adds that since he is acquainted with both Frederick and Marcel, he cannot be a dangerous person, which dismisses Frederick's primary concern. Frederick weakly tries to argue that Marcel could also be dangerous, but Martine confidently declares that it is fine. With a brilliant smile, she decides that the best way to get to know each other is to talk at a cafe. And so, the four of them find themselves seated at a table in the cafe they had just left. Martine begins the conversation by asking about the relationship between Lord Marcel and Leon. Marcel explains that he runs a magical tool workshop on the outskirts of the capital and that Leon had visited him there, with Leon adding that his parents run a diner nearby. Martine is delighted to hear that his family has a diner and exclaims that she would love to go, but Frederick reminds her that she promised to stay within the Central District. Her face falls with disappointment as she laments that she had finally made a friend. Leon, confused, asks if nobles don't typically have many friends and attend fancy tea parties. Seeing the genuine sadness on the young noblewoman's face, he feels an overwhelming urge to do something to help her. He tells her that she is of course welcome to come to his family's diner. Frederick immediately shuts down the idea, explaining that Lady Martine is not in a position where she can go out so freely. Leon realizes his naivety. It was obvious that a girl of her status would not be able to choose her friends without restriction. He desperately tries to think of a way to help her get a break from her constrained life. He then proposes an idea. She could visit his diner as a form of hands-on training to learn about the lives of commoners. Martine seizes upon the idea, enthusiastically quoting her father's belief that understanding commoners is essential for good governance. She turns to a flustered Frederick and asks if he would deny her such an important learning opportunity. Completely outmaneuvered, Frederick sighs in defeat and agrees to adjust her schedule so she can go. The mood lightens, and Martine asks how Frederick and Leon first met. Martine pouts when she learns Frederick met Leon on the outskirts of the capital, accusing him of unfairly going places without her. She playfully declares that she will forgive him only if he brings her souvenirs from his trips from now on. Frederick then asks why Leon and Marcel are in the city center, and Leon explains that Marcel was showing him around for the first time. Frederick remarks on the delicious bruschetta at the cafe, and Leon eagerly agrees that he'd like some. Frederick orders 2 bruschettas, and Martine, seeing Leon's excitement, asks for one as well. Martine then looks at the menu and orders a choux à la crème for herself. Leon is touched, realizing that she ordered the bruschetta he was interested in out of consideration for him. He admits he does not know what a choux à la crème is, surprising Martine. She explains that it is her favorite dish and suggests they trade so that he can try it. The waitress soon arrives with their order, 1 choux à la crème and 2 plates of bruschetta. Frederick insists that he and Marcel must try the bruschetta first before Lady Martine eats. He takes a piece of the bruschetta and eats it first. Leon is shocked as he realizes what is happening. Frederick is acting as a poison tester for the noble lady. He understands now that such customs are a normal part of life for the nobility and nervously takes a bite of his own food. He finds the combination of tomato and cheese on the bruschetta to be absolutely exquisite. Everyone at the table praises the delicious food, and Frederick is glad his recommendation was a success. Martine then offers Leon a piece of her choux à la crème as promised. He looks at the dish, which appears similar to a boiled egg topped with a sauce he guesses might be olive oil. He takes a bite and is surprised by an incredible sweetness, realizing it is a dessert. Martine asks him how it is, and he wonders if the sweetness comes from honey. He tells her it is very delicious, and she is delighted that he enjoys it so much. She wistfully says that she would love to eat more, but she is only allowed to have 1 sweet per day. The conversation turns more serious as Martine asks Leon if he plans to inherit his family's diner in the future. He hesitantly reveals that he is thinking of taking the entrance exam for the royal school. Martine is overjoyed at the news, realizing that if he passes, they could attend school together. Frederick asks why he wants to go, and Leon explains that he was inspired by the wonderful magical tools at Marcel's workshop. He adds that he heard that graduating from the royal school provides opportunities to handle such tools. Frederick remarks that Leon is an interesting case, as most commoners who aim for the school want to either move up in social status or earn a lot of money. Martine passionately defends Leon, saying that she prefers his genuine curiosity to the other children she has met, who were either boring or transparently trying to curry favor. She looks at Leon with pure, shining eyes and declares that she likes him much more, a compliment that leaves him blushing and flustered. Frederick brings the conversation back to a practical matter, asking Leon if he has the study materials needed for the exam. When Leon casually mentions that he can already read and write, Frederick is completely shocked. Leon immediately realizes his slip-up, internally kicking himself for saying something unnecessary. Frederick presses him, asking where he learned to read and write, and Leon falls back on his cover story about his grandfather teaching him. While Frederick accepts the story, remarking that his grandfather must have been a great teacher, Leon feels that he is still under suspicion. Martine suggests that they provide Leon with some study materials, and Frederick readily agrees. Frederick promises to bring the materials to Leon's house on his next day off, much to Leon's gratitude. Frederick then announces that it is time for them to leave, as their allotted time for the outing is over, much to Martine's disappointment. As they get up to leave, Martine says she is looking forward to visiting the diner, and Marcel says he will be heading back as well. Frederick reminds Leon that he will bring the study materials on his next day off. Once they are gone, Leon slumps onto the table, letting out a long, exhausted sigh of relief. He stretches, worn out from the tense social encounter. He then looks around and is startled to see that the cafe, which had been full just a moment ago, is now completely empty. He looks around nervously at the vacant tables. He asks Marcel why all the other customers have suddenly disappeared. Marcel calmly reveals that he failed to notice that all the other patrons had been quietly replaced by guards shortly after Martine and Frederick arrived. This prompts Leon to ask the question that has been bothering him. Who exactly are those two? Marcel reveals their full names and titles, Lady Martine Razlasia and Lord Frederick Townsend. Leon is stunned by Martine's last name, realizing its connection to the royal family, and Marcel confirms his suspicion. She is the first princess of the country of Razlasia. The revelation hits him like a bolt of lightning. He is thrown into a state of utter shock, unable to process the fact that he just casually befriended and shared food with a princess. Marcel adds that Frederick is the 3rd son of the former Duke Townsend and a highly talented, well-known member of the Royal Guard at only 18 years of age. Leon descends into a full-blown panic, worrying that he will be punished for being disrespectful and terrified at the thought of the princess visiting his humble family diner. Marcel tries to calm him down, assuring him that it is best to act normally, as they both seem to have taken a liking to him. He also reveals that Martine had subtly instructed him to tell Leon their true identities on the way out, confirming that it was all part of her plan. Leon begins to calm down, realizing that while they are incredibly important people, they are also kind. He resolves to try not to worry about it too much and just be himself. Feeling completely drained by the day's events, he thanks Marcel and decides to head home early. 3 days later, after spending time trying not to think about the momentous events in the Central District, he finds he cannot keep his secret any longer. The unease of hiding his multiple magic attributes by himself becomes too much to bear, and he decides to confide in the one person he trusts. He arrives at Marcel's workshop, and before the old man can ask about his invention ideas, he asks if he can talk about his attribute, believing Marcel will understand. A beaming smile illuminates the young noble girl's face. Her request leaves Leon, Marcel, and Frederick sweating with anxious uncertainty. Leon is left wondering how the situation escalated to this point. The scene flashes back to a few moments prior. Martine looks at Leon with wide, hopeful eyes and asks him to please be her friend. Leon can only stare back, utterly baffled by her sudden request. Frederick immediately tries to intervene, telling Lady Martine that it is improper to ask a complete stranger to be her friend so suddenly. She counters that she was overjoyed because Leon, unlike all the other commoner children she has met, looked her directly in the eye and spoke to her as an equal. She also points out that since he knows both Frederick and Marcel, he surely cannot be a dangerous person. Frederick continues to protest, but Martine firmly dismisses his concerns, brushing aside his arguments about Marcel. With a brilliant smile, she declares that the best way for them to get to know each other is to go talk at a cafe. And so, the four of them find themselves seated together at a nearby cafe table. Martine starts the conversation by eagerly asking about the relationship between Lord Marcel and Leon. Marcel explains that he runs a magical tool workshop on the outskirts of the western capital and that Leon came to visit, while Leon adds that his parents run a diner in the same area. Martine is delighted to hear about the diner and exclaims her desire to visit, but Frederick quickly reminds her that she had promised to go no further than the Central District. Her face falls with sadness as she laments the fact that she had finally made a friend. This surprises Leon, who had assumed that all nobles had lots of friends and regularly attended fancy tea parties. Seeing the genuine look of disappointment on her face, he feels a strong urge to do something to cheer her up. He tells her that she would, of course, be welcome to visit their diner. Frederick immediately cuts in, explaining to Leon that Lady Martine is not in a position to go out so freely. Leon realizes his mistake. It was obvious just by looking at her that a girl of her status could not freely choose her own friends. He desperately wishes he could find a way to let her take a break from her constrained life. An idea strikes him, and he suggests that she could visit his home as a form of hands-on training, if she has never been to a commoner's house before. Martine seizes the opportunity, passionately quoting her father's belief that a noble must understand the lives of commoners in order to govern well. She turns to a flustered Frederick, pointedly asking if he would deny her the chance to learn such an important lesson. Completely outmaneuvered by her clever argument, Frederick sighs in defeat and agrees to make the necessary arrangements for her visit. The mood lightens, and Martine asks how Frederick first met Leon. She pouts upon learning that Frederick has been going to the outskirts of the capital without her, calling it unfair. She playfully declares that she will only forgive him if he brings her back souvenirs from his future trips. Frederick changes the subject by asking Leon why he and Marcel are in the city center today. After Leon explains, Frederick recommends the delicious bruschetta at the cafe, an idea Leon eagerly agrees to. Frederick orders 2 bruschettas, and Martine chimes in that she would like one as well. She then orders a choux à la crème for herself from the menu. Leon is touched, realizing that she ordered the bruschetta he was interested in just for him. He asks her what a choux à la crème is, and she is surprised he has never heard of it. She explains that it is her favorite dish and proposes that they trade so he can try it too. The waitress soon arrives with their order of 1 choux à la crème and 2 plates of bruschetta. Frederick tells Lady Martine to wait a moment, explaining that he and Marcel should try the food first. He takes a bite of the bruschetta before passing it to her. Leon is shocked as he understands the implication. Frederick is acting as a poison taster to ensure her safety. Realizing this is a normal custom for nobles, he nervously takes a bite of his own food. He finds the bruschetta to be exquisite, with the tomato and cheese matching perfectly. Everyone at the table praises the food, and Frederick is pleased that his recommendation was a success. Martine then offers Leon a piece of her choux à la crème as they had agreed. He examines the dish, which looks like a boiled egg with a strange topping. He takes a bite and is surprised by the sweet flavor, realizing it is a dessert. He wonders if the sweetness is from honey and tells Martine it is delicious. She is delighted that he enjoys it so much. She wistfully remarks that she wants more, but she is only allowed one sweet per day. The conversation takes a more serious turn as Martine asks Leon if he will inherit his family's diner someday. He hesitantly tells her that he is actually thinking of taking the entrance exam for the royal school, though he is not sure if he will pass. Martine is ecstatic at the news, realizing that if he gets in, they could go to school together. Frederick asks him why he wants to attend, and Leon explains that he was inspired by the wonderful magical tools he saw at Marcel's workshop. He adds that he heard that graduates of the royal school often get opportunities to handle such tools. Frederick finds this interesting, noting that most commoners who want to attend either seek to improve their social standing or to earn a lot of money. Martine quickly interjects that Leon is not strange, complaining that all the other children she has met were either boring or transparently trying to curry favor with her. She looks at him with a pure, dazzling smile and declares that she likes him much more, a compliment that makes him blush deeply. Frederick then raises a practical point, asking Leon if he is even able to study for the difficult entrance exam. Leon's casual response that he can already read and write leaves Frederick completely stunned. Realizing he has once again said something he shouldn't have, Leon sweats nervously. Frederick presses him for an explanation, and Leon falls back on his cover story, claiming that his grandfather taught him both literacy and honorifics. While Frederick outwardly accepts the explanation, Leon feels that he is still under suspicion. Martine suggests that they provide Leon with some study materials, and Frederick agrees that it would be a good idea. Frederick promises to bring the materials to Leon's house on his next day off, much to Leon's delight. Frederick then announces that it is time for them to leave, as their allotted time for the outing has passed, much to Martine's dismay. They say their goodbyes, with Martine looking forward to visiting the diner, and Leon and Marcel are left alone at the table. Frederick reminds Leon one last time that he will bring the study materials soon. Once they are gone, Leon lets out a huge sigh of relief, completely drained from the encounter. He stretches, trying to relax after the tense meeting. He then looks around and is shocked to see that the once full cafe is now completely empty. He looks around the vacant room in confusion. He asks Marcel what happened to all the other customers. Marcel calmly reveals that he failed to notice that all the other patrons had been quietly replaced by guards shortly after Frederick and Martine arrived. This prompts Leon to ask the question that has been burning in his mind. Who exactly are those two? Marcel finally reveals their full names and titles: Lady Martine Razlasia and Lord Frederick Townsend. The name Razlasia sends a jolt through Leon as he realizes its connection to the royal family, and Marcel confirms his suspicion. Martine is the country's first princess. The truth hits him with the force of a physical blow. He is left in a state of utter shock, his mind reeling from the revelation that he just befriended royalty. Marcel continues, explaining that Frederick is the third son of the former Duke Townsend and a highly talented and well-known member of the royal guard at the young age of 18. Leon descends into a full-blown panic, terrified that he will be punished for his casual and disrespectful behavior, and horrified at the thought of a princess visiting his humble diner. Marcel tries to calm him down, reassuring him that it is best to act normally, as they both seem to have taken a liking to him. He also reveals that Martine had subtly instructed him to tell Leon their true identities on the way out, proving that she wanted him to know. Leon slowly calms down, accepting that while they are incredibly important people, they are also kind. He resolves to try not to worry about it too much and just be himself when they meet again. Completely exhausted by the day's revelations and social pressures, he thanks Marcel and decides to head home early. 3 days later, after trying and failing to put the eventful day out of his mind, he knows he cannot keep his secret any longer. The anxiety of hiding his ability to use all magic attributes by himself becomes too much to bear. He goes to Marcel's workshop, determined to confide in him, and before Marcel can ask about new inventions, Leon asks if he can talk about his attribute. Meanwhile, at the Townsend estate, Frederick reports the day's events to his father, the former Duke Richard Townsend. The Duke listens to his son's report and then proposes a solution to keep an eye on the mysterious boy: have Leon commute to the Royal Academy from their estate. After considering the potential benefits, the Duke agrees to the plan, but states that first, he must meet this boy Leon for himself. A beaming smile illuminates the young noble girl's face. Her request leaves Leon, Marcel, and Frederick sweating with anxious uncertainty. Leon is left wondering how the situation escalated to this point. The scene flashes back to a few moments prior. Martine looks at Leon with wide, hopeful eyes and asks him to please be her friend. Leon can only stare back, utterly baffled by her sudden request. Frederick immediately tries to intervene, telling Lady Martine that it is improper to ask a complete stranger to be her friend so suddenly. She counters that she was overjoyed because Leon, unlike all the other commoner children she has met, looked her directly in the eye and spoke to her as an equal. She also points out that since he knows both Frederick and Marcel, he surely cannot be a dangerous person. Frederick continues to protest, but Martine firmly dismisses his concerns, brushing aside his arguments about Marcel. With a brilliant smile, she declares that the best way for them to get to know each other is to go talk at a cafe. And so, the four of them find themselves seated together at a nearby cafe table. Martine starts the conversation by eagerly asking about the relationship between Lord Marcel and Leon. Marcel explains that he runs a magical tool workshop on the outskirts of the western capital and that Leon came to visit, while Leon adds that his parents run a diner in the same area. Martine is delighted to hear about the diner and exclaims her desire to visit, but Frederick quickly reminds her that she had promised to go no further than the central district. Her face falls with sadness as she laments the fact that she had finally made a friend. This surprises Leon, who had assumed that all nobles had lots of friends and regularly attended fancy tea parties. Seeing the genuine look of disappointment on her face, he feels a strong urge to do something to cheer her up. He tells her that she would, of course, be welcome to visit their diner. Frederick immediately cuts in, explaining to Leon that Lady Martine is not in a position to go out so freely. Leon realizes his mistake. It was obvious just by looking at her that a girl of her status could not freely choose her own friends. He desperately wishes he could find a way to let her take a break from her constrained life. An idea strikes him, and he suggests that she could visit his home as a form of hands-on training, if she has never been to a commoner's house before. Martine seizes the opportunity, passionately quoting her father's belief that a noble must understand the lives of commoners in order to govern well. She turns to a flustered Frederick, pointedly asking if he would deny her the chance to learn such an important lesson. Completely outmaneuvered by her clever argument, Frederick sighs in defeat and agrees to make the necessary arrangements for her visit. The mood lightens, and Martine asks how Frederick first met Leon. She pouts upon learning that Frederick has been going to the outskirts of the capital without her, calling it unfair. She playfully declares that she will only forgive him if he brings her back souvenirs from his future trips. Frederick changes the subject by asking Leon why he and Marcel are in the city center today. After Leon explains, Frederick recommends the delicious bruschetta at the cafe, an idea Leon eagerly agrees to. Frederick orders 2 bruschettas, and Martine chimes in that she would like one as well. She then orders a choux à la crème for herself from the menu. Leon is touched, realizing that she ordered the bruschetta he was interested in just for him. He asks her what a choux à la crème is, and she is surprised he has never heard of it. She explains that it is her favorite dish and proposes that they trade so he can try it too. The waitress soon arrives with their order of 1 choux à la crème and 2 plates of bruschetta. Frederick tells Lady Martine to wait a moment, explaining that he and Marcel should try the food first. He takes a bite of the bruschetta before passing it to her. Leon is shocked as he understands the implication. Frederick is acting as a poison taster to ensure her safety. Realizing this is a normal custom for nobles, he nervously takes a bite of his own food. He finds the bruschetta to be exquisite, with the tomato and cheese matching perfectly. Everyone at the table praises the food, and Frederick is pleased that his recommendation was a success. Martine then offers Leon a piece of her choux à la crème as they had agreed. He examines the dish, which looks like a boiled egg with a strange topping. He takes a bite and is surprised by the sweet flavor, realizing it is a dessert. He wonders if the sweetness is from honey and tells Martine it is delicious. She is delighted that he enjoys it so much. She wistfully remarks that she wants more, but she is only allowed 1 sweet per day. The conversation takes a more serious turn as Martine asks Leon if he will inherit his family's diner someday. He hesitantly tells her that he is actually thinking of taking the entrance exam for the royal school, though he is not sure if he will pass. Martine is ecstatic at the news, realizing that if he gets in, they could go to school together. Frederick asks him why he wants to attend, and Leon explains that he was inspired by the wonderful magical tools he saw at Marcel's workshop. He adds that he heard that graduates of the royal school often get opportunities to handle such tools. Frederick finds this interesting, noting that most commoners who want to attend either seek to improve their social standing or to earn a lot of money. Martine quickly interjects that Leon is not strange, complaining that all the other children she has met were either boring or transparently trying to curry favor with her. She looks at him with a pure, dazzling smile and declares that she likes him much more, a compliment that makes him blush deeply. Frederick then raises a practical point, asking Leon if he is even able to study for the difficult entrance exam. Leon's casual response that he can already read and write leaves Frederick completely stunned. Realizing he has once again said something he shouldn't have, Leon sweats nervously. Frederick presses him for an explanation, and Leon falls back on his cover story, claiming that his grandfather taught him both literacy and honorifics. While Frederick outwardly accepts the explanation, Leon feels that he is still under suspicion. Martine suggests that they provide Leon with some study materials, and Frederick agrees that it would be a good idea. Frederick promises to bring the materials to Leon's house on his next day off, much to Leon's delight. Frederick then announces that it is time for them to leave, as their allotted time for the outing has passed, much to Martine's dismay. They say their goodbyes, with Martine looking forward to visiting the diner, and Leon and Marcel are left alone at the table. Frederick reminds Leon one last time that he will bring the study materials soon. Once they are gone, Leon lets out a huge sigh of relief, completely drained from the encounter. He stretches, trying to relax after the tense meeting. He then looks around and is shocked to see that the once full cafe is now completely empty. He looks around the vacant room in confusion. He asks Marcel what happened to all the other customers. Marcel calmly reveals that he failed to notice that all the other patrons had been quietly replaced by guards shortly after Frederick and Martine arrived. This prompts Leon to ask the question that has been burning in his mind. Who exactly are those two? Marcel finally reveals their full names and titles: Lady Martine Razlasia and Lord Frederick Townsend. The name Razlasia sends a jolt through Leon as he realizes its connection to the royal family, and Marcel confirms his suspicion. Martine is the country's first princess. The truth hits him with the force of a physical blow. He is left in a state of utter shock, his mind reeling from the revelation that he just befriended royalty. Marcel continues, explaining that Frederick is the third son of the former Duke Townsend and a highly talented and well-known member of the Royal Guard at the young age of 18. Leon descends into a full-blown panic, terrified that he will be punished for his casual and disrespectful behavior, and horrified at the thought of a princess visiting his humble diner. Marcel tries to calm him down, reassuring him that it is best to act normally, as they both seem to have taken a liking to him. He also reveals that Martine had subtly instructed him to tell Leon their true identities on the way out, proving that she wanted him to know. Leon slowly calms down, accepting that while they are incredibly important people, they are also kind. He resolves to try not to worry about it too much and just be himself when they meet again. Completely exhausted by the day's revelations and social pressures, he thanks Marcel and decides to head home early. 3 days later, after trying and failing to put the eventful day out of his mind, he knows he cannot keep his secret any longer. The anxiety of hiding his ability to use all magic attributes by himself becomes too much to bear. He goes to Marcel's workshop, determined to confide in him, and before Marcel can ask about new inventions, Leon asks if he can talk about his attribute. Meanwhile, at the Townsend estate, Frederick reports the day's events to his father, the former Duke Richard Townsend. The Duke listens to his son's report and then proposes a solution to keep an eye on the mysterious boy: have Leon commute to the Royal Academy from their estate. After considering the potential benefits, the Duke agrees to the plan, but states that first he must meet this boy Leon for himself. A few days later, the lunch service at the family diner is winding down. Leon is wiping down a table as the last of the midday customers begin to wrap up their meals. A weary but polite voice enters the diner asking if he can still be served, startling Leon. He is shocked to see that the visitor is Lord Frederick, who is dressed in the simple clothes of a commoner. Leon immediately questions his unusual attire, and Frederick quietly asks him to keep his noble identity a secret from any other patrons. Before they can talk further, Frederick says he is starving and would like to order lunch, quickly choosing the steak set from the menu. Marie watches the two of them from a distance, whispering to her brother to ask if his new, polite friend is okay. Leon smiles and reassures his sister that their guest is fine and that he is just a friend of his. He asks Marie to handle any other remaining customers, saying he will take care of Frederick himself, to which she happily agrees. His mother calls out from the kitchen that the steak set is ready. After Frederick has finished his meal, he thanks Leon for the food and asks if he has a moment to speak privately. He reveals that he has told his family about Leon and that they are very interested in meeting him. He then extends a formal invitation for Leon to join his family for dinner at their home that very night, a proposal that leaves Leon utterly stunned. Leon questions Frederick about the need for secrecy regarding his noble status, but Frederick explains that while it's best in public, he must reveal his identity to Leon's parents to ease their worries. Leon internally groans, thinking to himself that revealing the truth will likely make his parents worry even more, not less. He brings Frederick to his parents, who are completely shocked to hear that their son has been invited to dine at a noble's house. Frederick politely explains that after he spoke of Leon to his family, they expressed a strong desire to meet the boy at least once. The dinner invitation, he clarifies, was their suggestion as the best way to make this meeting happen. He apologizes sincerely for any concern his sudden and unusual request may have caused them. He reassures them that their desire to meet Leon stems from honest curiosity and that they should not worry too much about it. He looks at Leon's parents and formally asks them to entrust their son to his care for the evening. He adds that since the dinner will run late, they have already made arrangements for Leon to stay overnight at their estate. He gives his word that Leon will be brought home safely the next day and asks if they are ready to depart. With his parents' anxious but formal permission, Leon announces that he is ready, and they set off as his parents wish them well. The wheels of a grand carriage, far more elegant than the common wagons, turn on a paved road. Inside the carriage, Leon sits nervously across from Frederick on a plush, comfortable seat as they travel in silence. He asks about the impressive carriage, and Frederick explains that it belongs to the ducal house and is the one he uses when traveling in secret. Leon is amazed by the magical glowing light fixture in the carriage's ceiling and asks again why he was really invited to the estate. Frederick tells him not to be nervous, reiterating that his parents simply wanted to meet him, and then clarifies that he himself is not the Duke. He explains the local custom. The title of Duke passes to the eldest son when he turns 15, making his father the former Duke. Leon then asks why Frederick, a high-ranking noble, is so personally concerned with a commoner like him. Frederick hesitates for a moment, his expression turning serious as he gathers his thoughts. He decides that the only way for Leon to truly understand the situation is to be completely honest with him. He confesses that he initially suspected Leon might be a spy from another country due to his exceptional intelligence and behavior, but a thorough investigation cleared him of any suspicion. He reveals the true reason for the invitation. From the perspective of the Duke's family, Leon is a uniquely talented individual, and they want to bring him over to their side. Leon is shocked to learn he was investigated but also recognizes this as a major opportunity for him to gain powerful backing. He smiles and tells Frederick that he is glad the suspicions have been cleared and is honored to be held in such high regard. The carriage ride continues in a tense but more understanding silence. They finally arrive at a massive, ornate mansion, and Frederick proudly welcomes him to the Townsend house. They are immediately greeted at the entrance by a stern-looking butler named Albin, who welcomes Lord Frederick home and addresses Leon as an honored guest. Leon, though intimidated by the formal atmosphere, politely introduces himself to the butler. Frederick instructs the butler that since Leon is an invited guest, a maid will escort him to his room, and he will see him again at dinner. He then departs, leaving Leon feeling incredibly unsettled and alone in the vast, unfamiliar mansion. A maid named Once introduces herself to Master Leon and offers to show him to his room. Leon gives her a deep, polite bow, and she tells him with a kind smile that he may raise his head. She explains that as their honored guest, he does not need to bow to the staff, even though he is a commoner. He is still flustered by the formal treatment as the maid begins to lead him into the mansion's interior. She escorts him through a grand hallway with a sweeping staircase and an elaborate chandelier. He stares in awe at the luxurious surroundings, completely overwhelmed by the wealth on display. He thinks to himself that a noble's mansion is incredible and feels like some kind of divine visitation. The maid shows him to an incredibly lavish guest room, which further amazes him with its elegance. He feels as though he has been transported to a luxury hotel as the maid invites him to take a seat so she can review his schedule for the evening. She informs him that there is about an hour until dinner, and in that time, he will first take a bath and then change his clothes. Leon is shocked to hear that they have clocks, and Once confirms that every room is equipped with one, and all servants carry a portable model as well. He is stunned by the realization that modern-style clocks, a technology he thought didn't exist here, are commonplace for the nobility. He asks to see her pocket watch and is amazed to find it is exactly like a clock from his world, with hour, minute, and second hands. He confirms that time is counted in 24-hour days, just like on Earth. The maid is impressed, noting that he can read clocks and speaks with natural politeness, two things that most new servants struggle with. Leon falls back on his cover story that someone taught him, privately marveling at how many things this world has in common with his own. Ance tells him his bath is ready and that she will assist him, which excites Leon at the prospect of a real bath. In a large, tiled bathroom, the maid helps him by washing his hair. He tells her how good it feels, and she smiles, glad to hear that he is comfortable. He says he can wash his own body, so she agrees to wait outside and tells him to take his time. He reflects on how nobles use magic to heat tap water for their baths, a luxury he couldn't replicate with his own limited control. He now understands why they need assistance with magic power for bathing, as there are no high-tier magic tools for such tasks. He struggles to rinse himself with a heavy wooden bucket of water, further appreciating the need for assistance without a modern shower. He finally sinks into the warm bath, feeling that it is an amazing luxury and envying the nobles who get to enjoy it every day. After his bath, Ance is waiting to help him change his clothes and fix his hair. She presents him with a set of fine clothes that Lord Frederick had prepared for him. Now dressed in his new attire, he is escorted by Ance to the dining hall. His new shoes click on the polished floors as they walk down the grand corridor. Upon entering the dining hall, he gives a deep and respectful bow, stating that he is deeply honored to be invited. He looks up to see the entire Townsend family seated at a long, formal dining table, watching him intently. The man at the head of the table, the former Duke, greets him with a welcoming smile. He tells Leon not to be nervous and invites him to take a seat before beginning the formal introductions. He introduces himself as Richard, the former head of the Townsend family. He then introduces his wife, Catherine, his second son, Julian, and his third son, Frederick. He mentions that his other children have already moved out and says that for now, they should all enjoy their meal. An array of exquisitely prepared dishes are served for dinner, a feast unlike anything Leon has ever seen. After they have finished the delicious meal, Richard asks Leon if he enjoyed it and says he would like to discuss something serious. He looks at Leon with a sincere expression and says that he has an earnest request to make of him. Richard explains that the nobility of the country is divided into two factions. Their faction, which believes in cooperation between classes and giving opportunities to all talented people. The other faction, he continues, believes in preserving the power of the old noble families and strictly enforcing the division between nobles and commoners. He elaborates that the country's entire social system was established centuries ago by the legendary apostle, who granted nobles privileges in exchange for their sworn duty to protect the commoners. A key rule of this system is that nobles are meant to coexist with and support commoners, not control them. However, he laments that in recent times, faith in the goddess Lady Michourine has been waning, and with it, the commitment to these foundational principles. Leon listens intently, the term apostle once again catching his attention and reminding him of his conversation with Marcel. He feels a deep sense of gratitude towards this apostle, realizing that it is because of their ancient rules that he is being treated with such respect by this powerful family. Richard states that Frederick described Leon as a remarkably capable commoner, and after observing him tonight, he wholeheartedly agrees with that assessment.